Eternal Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and we're continuing with this series called Yeshua Said. And we're looking at all the words of Yeshua Messiah, taking out all the other words of everyone else and all the commentary, and we got to get an understanding of what the premise was of the teaching of Messiah and what mercy and grace is all about. And in today's episode is episode number part 11, and it's Matthew 5:38 to 5:42, and we see Yeshua talking and teaching about revenge. And I could just tell you right now from a health standpoint that having the idea or the lust for revenge or the bitterness or the sadness or the getting upset until you get your revenge is not a healthy thing. It's nothing good about storing up those emotions until you get your revenge or seeking revenge. But that's my opinion. Let's see what Yeshua Messiah has to say about this. Well, we look about what he says about revenge, and first I'm going to read exactly the verse. And it says, Matthew 5:38 to 42, it says, "You have heard the law says that punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I say, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. If you are sued in court and your shirt is taken from you, give them your coat as well. If a soldier demands that you carry his gear for 1 mile, carry it 2 miles. Give to those who ask, and don't turn away from those who want to borrow." So this is talking about revenge here, but we have to understand something. You know, we know the moral guidelines and the code of the commandments, at least we think we know, or some people know. Do not steal, do not commit murder, do not commit adultery. These are the common things that pretty much most people around the world, even if they're not believers, will believe to be morally true and okay. Not everybody, but most people. Now, you know, when Yeshua was here, he was talking about those, but he also spoke more about an attitude towards things than just the actual commandments or the moral guidelines. He spoke about the attitude. He spoke about hypocrisy. He spoke about bitterness. He spoke about anger. He spoke about revenge or seeking revenge. These are the things he spoke about so often. And I want to break this down here, but let's look at 5:38. It says, "You have heard that the law says." Now remember, this is Yeshua Messiah talking to his believers, to his followers. It says, "You have heard that the law says the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth." Now, he was talking to people that were familiar with the Torah already. They knew the Jewish guidelines, the codes, and what the Jewish people believed. He wasn't bringing this message to the non-believers. He wasn't bringing this message to the heathen and the pagans of the world or the Gentiles. And he wasn't bringing this message to people that didn't know the Torah. He was bringing this message to people that knew the Torah, they knew the instructions, they knew the guidelines, but they also knew that the rabbis and Pharisees were adding stuff to the guidelines and instructions so they could have the power. And Yeshua came to set them free from that and say, look, we are not to add or take away from the guidelines and instructions, but we are to keep them, and this is what it says. So he's telling his believers, you have heard that the law says, or the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And that's found in the Torah in Exodus 21:24, Leviticus 24:20, and that's what it says pretty much. The punishment must match the injury. We have to understand something though. You know, we take for example Exodus 21:24 when it says an eye for an eye. The rule was instituted as a guide for judges, not as a rule for the average person to go doing these things. You see, back then, Israel didn't need a policeman. They didn't need jail. They didn't need anything like that because everyone knew what the guideline was, what the law was. And they also knew that the judge that was going to hear the case, or the temple, the judge in the temple, or one of the priests that were going to hear the case, the Levites, they were going to give their answer based on what the Torah said, and the people then accepted it. So this is what was accepted. So, you know, when we say an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth and so on, this is not to be taken literally. You know, it's the idea of there's justice done. And that's what the idea is. There's justice done. So we have to understand this, and we have to understand the legal system back then to understand what is taking place here. Because it wasn't not, oh, they knocked out your tooth, now go out and knock out their tooth. No, especially not doing it with seeking revenge. It says in 39 of Matthew 5, but I say to you, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. If you are sued in court and your shirt is taken from you, give your coat too. If a soldier demands, and back then it was common practice for them to demand the people to carry their gear down, and these were the Roman soldiers. He said, well, then go and carry his gear 2 miles, not just 1 mile. You know, it set an example that it's not just about seeking revenge all the time. It's about knowing and trusting in our wonderful Creator and knowing that He will justify the things that were done against you. It's not up to you to have to take this revenge. And this is the problem we find so many people in today. They don't seek peace. If they receive violence, it's just I don't want to say a human nature, because not everyone's like this, but it's the nature of many people to seek violence back. And we think that's an answer, but it's not an answer. I remember years ago, there was a guy in the Amish community. He wasn't an Amish, and he murdered, he killed some Amish children. And the Amish people actually did something amazing. They didn't seek for him to go to the electric chair or anything like that. You know, what they did was they said, we forgive him. They said, we forgive him. That's all, that we forgive him. And that's amazing. In a time today where everyone's going to, you know, you turn on the news and you see somebody that was murdered, their kids was murdered, and just, oh, I want them murdered as well, and all this. It's the anger, it's the emotions, it's getting stirred up. It's what the enemy wants us to do. We have to get away from that, separate from that. I'm not saying, you know, that justice shouldn't be done, but I am saying justice will be done if we seek it up to Him. Now, everybody, I want to look at what my favorite Bible translation. This is the One New Man Bible, and it says at the bottom, Revealing Jewish Roots and Power. And this is my favorite translation of the scriptures for many reasons, which I discuss on my website. Go to healthwatchman.com and you can see. But in the notes on this, it gives you an understanding of what was taken on during that culture, during that time. So you had an idea and an understanding. So I want to read this here. It says, the ancient Israel, both criminal and civil law, were handled in the synagogue and the temple. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, tells the early church to follow that example, that Christians had no business going before the heathen courts, but were to resolve their differences within the body of believers. Each first century synagogue had an appointed judge whose primary qualifications were knowledge of the Torah and application of those principles in the lives of the members. The Torah was their legal code, their guide for every legal decision, based on the 613 commandments and the 5 books of the scriptures. Although the commands had been known for some time, it was not until the 3rd century AD that the count of 613 was first written, with 248 positive and 365 negative. So it goes on to talk about here, there was a local Sanhedrin or committee in each community, as well as the ones in Jerusalem, and each was a council of elders that upheld these guidelines and instructions, and some of them were corrupt, and that's why Yeshua Messiah had such a difference with them. But we go and look at it, it says the ancient Hebrews had long before Yeshua's day determined that the references such as an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, as found in Exodus 21:24, were not to be taken literally. You see, I have people email me quite often saying, well, you know, am I supposed to stone my child if they're acting unruly, or am I supposed to, you know, are we supposed to stone people if they're committing adultery and take an eye for an eye and all these things? Well, it wasn't taken literally back then. It says they were not to be taken literally. They said this because the basic premise was that God is just. And if a one-eyed man knocked out the eye of someone with 2 eyes, then to take a second eye from the one-eyed man would make him blind. That would not be just. If a toothless man knocked out someone else's tooth, then he would escape punishment. This would not be just. Therefore, these and other scriptures were used as the basis for establishing monetary punishment and fines. A major difference between the Torah and the law of other ancient countries can be seen in the case of adultery. In Jewish practice, if two people were caught in adultery, both were to be punished. In other countries, only the woman was to be punished because their laws did not involve moral problems but property rights. The woman was punished because she was the property of the husband. The man with whom she was caught was not punished. And then it goes on to talk about adultery in this. So we look at this, and this is an excellent scriptures. Everyone should get it. Go to my website, healthwatchman.com. It reveals the Jewish roots and power, and it talks about the culture at that time. And this reference of an eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth was never to be taken literally. Listen, everybody. Our wonderful Creator seeks justice and shows us justice, and He is just. And we have to understand that and realize that. We have to believe in that. What He wants from us is to be peacemakers and to be peace seekers. That's it. That's what He calls of us. Peacemakers and to be peace seekers and to go and make disciples. You're not going to make disciples if you're going out there and you're not promoting peace. We look at Psalms 34:12 and 14. It says, "Does anyone want to live a life that is long and prosperous? Then keep your tongue from speaking evil and your lips from telling lies. Turn away from evil and do good. Search for peace and work to maintain it." And when you're searching and seeking revenge, you're not searching and seeking peace. I can't tell you how much, I know so many people that are sick and suffering from disease today, and probably the leading cause is those people that are just seeking, revenge, or they're just never happy, and they'll think, well, you'll get yours and all this. No. Do the best you can do and leave the rest up to our Creator. He will justify everything. Everything will be justified. I know it's difficult. I know it's hard. I know things happen to us and we don't like it sometimes. But know that He's watching over and He sees our hearts and He wants us to seek peace and shalom. If you have any comments or questions about this or anything else in this series, Yeshua said, please post them below the video. We have a lot more videos to come about this topic. But we have to understand that just as Yeshua seeked peace, our Creator who's given us the Torah, the first 5 books of the scriptures, seek peace as well. And if you know the scriptures, and I'm not just talking about the so-called renewed covenant or the New Testament, all the scriptures, you know that from the first word of the scriptures all the way to the end, it's our Creator's greatest desire for us to live peacefully. And if there's ever a reason or an area where peace is not in the picture, it all comes with disobeying the guidelines and instructions of our Creator. If you obey the guidelines and instructions of our Creator, the end result is peace among the people. When you have disobedience to the guidelines and the instructions of the scriptures, the result is a whole bunch of negative emotions that go against peace. They go to fighting, they go to violence, they go to bitterness, they go to revenge, and so on. And Yeshua Messiah is not telling us to continue to take abuse from people that are abusing us. No, He's telling us, find a way to seek peace and you will be blessed. And that's for all believers out there. That's our responsibility, to find a way to seek peace. All right, this is Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, your health watchman, saying thanks for checking us out. Have a great day and shalom, shalom.